So we had our first forum 10 years ago. Facebook was in its infancy, Twitter had just begun to tweet, and the iPhone was just launched. We're also entering our toughest economic recession that we've had to face. Today, the World Economic Forum are saying that half the adult population on the planet have a smartphone. We are returning to full employment, and the world of work and business has greatly changed. So every conference that you've been going to, you hear that this pace of change is only going to increase thanks to robotics, artificial intelligence, biotechnology. Again, in a report I was reading from the World Economic Forum, they were saying that 65% of the children that start primary school now will enter jobs and occupations that aren't even on our radar. For me, that's quite staggering, even if half of that is true. So, given this context, we decided for this year's theme to look at how our sustainability challenges are transforming the bottom line of business and transforming the financial system. As a business network, over the last 18 years, we've shaped, driven, and sought to create the responsible business agenda in Ireland. And I think it's very fitting that for our 10th forum, we're talking about this theme. We finally have investors truly engaged in the sustainability debate. They have been one of the last critical stakeholders to engage in a meaningful way and at scale. But compared to 10 years ago, where we talked about business as a force for good, we can now also talk about the investor community as being a force for good. So a really significant change for business is that we now have all actors on the stage engaged in sustainability: business, investors, government, civil society. And that was a real block to business showing leadership 10 years ago. We have 193 countries signed up to the Sustainable Development Goals. We have 168 countries signed up to the Paris Agreement. Under both of those frameworks, we're seeing really significant international leadership and championing of them. And that's really significant for Ireland, because if we want to be competitive in the longer term, maintain our international brand, we need to have a strong position within both of those frameworks. As Ronan mentioned, we have a national action plan on CSR. Later this morning, Minister Coveney is going to launch our first action plan on business and human rights. So another significant step for us. And these are both policy frameworks that we've been involved in within the network. As Tina mentioned, the changing role of us as a network, I think, really reflects the maturing of the sustainability agenda. We very much started off on the focus of the social license to operate, the social obligation. That morphed and changed into dynamics of the drivers being reputation, brand, being an employer of choice. In the work that we do with companies, we see that there's a clear framing now around managing risk and stakeholder engagement. A really significant change for us over the last 10 years is that we can see companies genuinely have integrated sustainability into their business strategy. And we see this influencing senior decisions and board level decisions. And through companies that are going through the Business Working Responsibly mark that you'll hear about later, we are really supporting them on that journey. But as you all know, there are also many intractable changes. And there's a lot of stats to bear out the issues that we're not creating impact in. It goes without saying that gender and diversity at senior team levels and boardroom levels are not where they need to be. We're still challenged in reducing CO2 emissions, and it's still extremely challenging to maintain and create a purposeful culture within business. And one of the fundamental pieces that we need to look at is the level of trust. And you all know the Edelman Trust Barometer. It's been static and even declining. And I know it's not just for business. It is for NGOs, it's for government as well. But until we actually seek to unlock that trust issue, we will be hampered in the progress that we can make in regard to sustainability. Because sustainability requires collaboration across value chains and across different stakeholders. So the narrative has changed within Irish business. We would see sustainability as being mainstream. And because it's now mainstream, the debates within business are getting tougher. And they're tougher because they are more fundamental and they are more strategic. And within that, the hope within our business network is that we're putting our energies into action. We think that the debates around whether business has a role in climate change, whether it's good to have diversity at board level, we feel that those debates are done. We're working through a newly convened leaders group to try to come together to address our common areas of challenge. And this was something we initiated in the middle of last year. We're hoping through this new collaboration platform that we can seek to progress best practice within Ireland, ensure that we're mirroring what's happening internationally. Critically as well, we want businesses to come together to identify new solutions that we can actually scale up and really show our might in terms of sustainability. So we know the challenges we face, and we know that change is extremely difficult, but we also know many of the solutions. But for any solutions to be executed, we need finance and we need leadership. And that brings me, I think, to our themes for today. The challenge of financing sustainable development was mapped out in the Addis Ababa Action Agenda in 2015, where they identified 100 concrete measures that would help us achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Extremely ambitious, but it has to be given the level of challenges we face. Within that, we've heard really strong statements from international thinkers and leaders. A much-cited speech is by Mark Carney, the Governor of the Bank of England. And in an address to Lloyds of London in 2015, he said, "Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals will require mainstream finance. We need to build a new system, one that drives sustainable investment flows, based on resilient market-based and robust bank-based finance. We need finance for the long term." In addition to the leadership shown by Mark Carney, we see many business leaders talking to the UN General Assembly about the role of business in achieving the goals. In one of his addresses, Mike Wilson of CEO said, "We've got to mobilise a global coalition, the likes of which the world has never seen. The goals certainly have some fine aspirations for the $150 billion of overseas development aid, but we've got to do much more to mobilise $300 trillion of capital in the financial markets." So, eye-watering numbers. But in addition to these statements, over the last number of years, we've seen really impressive action happening in regard to the financial system and the investor community. Released during the summer was a recommendations report by the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, led by Mike Bloomberg and Mike Carney. We've seen a number of statements from the likes of Larry Fink and BlackRock talking about the risks of short-termism and the need to look at long-term value creation. The UN's Principles for Responsible Investment now has 1,800 signatories to it, and the estimate is that they represent about 34 trillion in assets. So again, huge numbers. At a European level, we saw the implementation of a directive for non-financial reporting, and this means that 6,000 of Europe's largest companies will actually have to report on their environmental, sustainable and governance factors. So there's a real genuine debate and change happening. And within the network, we will ensure that Irish business is supported and at the vanguard of this. We hope that by working with you, that we will maintain our best practice position and that we show true leadership. For us within the network, we feel that for the next phase of development within sustainability, we will seek to identify new partnerships, new coalitions. And through that, we can achieve our own economic and social agendas, as well as the goals of business. So I hope when you leave this morning that you have a much wider and deeper understanding of what the sustainability challenges will be that will be transforming your bottom line. So thank you very much.